In 2006, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh called the Maoists the single biggest internal security threat to India. The Maoists control 180 districts where they challenged the writ of the Indian state. They ran a red corridor through the heart of India. Now cut to 2024, there are just a dozen Maoist-affected districts left in India. And on the 16th of April, 29 Maoists were gunned down by the BSF and DRG in Chhattisgarh's Kanker district. The dead included 3 senior Maoist commanders. On Sunday, Home Minister Amit Shah said the BJP would end naxalism in India in the next 3 years. From January this year, as many as 79 Naxalites have already been killed in separate encounters with the security forces in Bastar. Is this the end of the road for the Maoists? And how realistic is this 3-year deadline? Joining me to discuss this are Brigadier B.K. Ponwar and my colleague Aditya Kaul. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. 29 Maoists gunned down in Bastar, in Kanker specifically, an area where you trained the police for close to 2 decades. How significant is this encounter in Bastar?
The basic issue was when Chhattisgarh became Chhattisgarh in 2000, and the last Chief Minister, Dr. Raman Singh, and the Governor, General State, and the DG, Mr. Rathore, they sat down and put their act together and said, there is something we need to do. We need to recruit new policemen, young boys, and we need to train them in guerrilla warfare. That is why, because of lack of training, that we have been having so many casualties. In Rani Bodli, 55 killed. Hiram Ghati, 76 killed. Everywhere the police was getting killed because the police learned how to do police work. Be in the police station, wait for a FIR to be lodged, and after that, the police action starts. Guerrilla warfare, to counter the guerrillas, you have to go out of the police
Absolutely,
station.
fight the guerrilla like a guerrilla. Yes.
Fine. And they are now going after the Maoists from multi-directional. I heard that Kevat fellow, Mr. Kevat, the TI of Pakanjur area, stating that they're doing multi-directional assault on the police, exactly how they're supposed to do.
Right.
And that is the reason that the policeman has become a counter-guerrilla specialist.
Right.
That the Naxalites are now finding it very difficult.
Multi-directional attacks, Aditya, as Brigadier Ponwar mentioned, that the police are now thinking like guerrillas and ambushing the guerrillas the way the guerrillas once ambushed the police. But you know, the Maoists really in Chhattisgarh have been very resilient. Every time in the past also we've seen that they've bounced back with several ambushes. They've ambushed security forces personnel as recently as last year. 20 policemen were killed. What leads you to believe that they could not come back this time around? They could, perform a similar turnaround?
Firstly, credit where it is due. I think this is one of the biggest operations in Chhattisgarh that has happened ever, where 29 Maoists have been gunned down. This is the periphery of Abu Jumad that we are talking about. Abu Jumad, till a few years ago, was called a liberated zone.
Absolutely, and impenetrable forest.
Impenetrable completely. And in Bastar, the Maoist heartland, it was difficult for the paramilitary and for the DRG and the Chhattisgarh police to counter them. And numbers speaking, I think this is the second biggest operation ever against the Maoists, the biggest being in Gachrauli in 2018, where 37 Maoists were killed in a 72-hour-long operation. This time around, it was a quick, smooth operation because the police and the paramilitary have learned the tricks of the Maoists. They know guerrilla warfare, they know jungle warfare, they can sustain themselves within the forest for hours and days together through survival mechanisms that are trained to them during the training phase. So clearly it's a big victory, but Sandeep, we can't take the Maoists lightly. I firmly believe that the Maoist shelf life will be perhaps next 5 to 10 years and will be done and dusted. Because back 11 years ago, I remember in 2013 when the UPA 2 was in power, I was in Darba Ghati inside the forests of Bastar when a gruesome massacre of the Congress leaders happened.
Nearly 30 leaders were
killed. 30 leaders, including Vidya Chandra Shukla, Mahinder Karma and others were gunned down. And imagine the trajectory. 11 years later, it's not the Congress, it's not the civilians, it's not the
Right.
security forces, but nearly 30 Maoists
Maoists
have been
being
killed by
killed.
the security forces.
Right.
So I think there's a paradigm shift.
Right.
I think the security forces have an upper edge.
Yes.
But this needs to be sustained.
Right.
So that Maoists are eradicated completely.
Right.
But hand in hand, there needs to be development.
Right.
I was speaking to locals in Bastar who
Yes.
say that a lot of development has happened in the last 10 years.
Absolutely.
Roads are there,
Yes.
there's more employment, and more the tribals of that area, more the common people feel that they are, amongst the masses, they are
Right.
being accepted,
Right.
there are more opportunities, the naxalism will end by that
very,
method.
very important point there, Brigadier Ponwar. What Aditya mentioned, that peace, normalcy, and most importantly, development is coming into Bastar now for the first time. And we've seen the election commission now going into parts of Bastar where they couldn't enter 10 years ago, and you have polling stations being set up in Bastar. How drastic has this transformation been in the last couple of years? That clear hold build strategy that the military uses to refer to moving into areas controlled by guerrillas. How is that playing out on the ground in the last couple of years?
When I entered Chhattisgarh in 2004 and 2005, good about 10 to 15,000 square kilometers of territory,
Yes.
almost the size of the Tripura state,
Right.
was in somebody else's hands. Then he went to the Indravati river. The policeman there said, "Kisab, hereafter is Naxalgarh. We don't
Right.
go there."
Right.
So that had to be reoccupied. Like an elephant walks in,
Right.
he walks with his 3 feet on the ground, 1 in the air.
Yes.
Then he puts the 4th foot on the ground,
Right.
crushes it, and then moves on. So similarly, these posts have come up now.
Right.
The CRPF, the BSF, all the Central Armed Police Forces. This is the net which has been created.
Yes.
These are forward zones which have been created and mutually supporting. So once that happens, from one to the other, 15 kilometers away, then between the two zones,
Yes.
posts, you have the roads coming up. Then you have the hospitals coming up. Then
Right.
most importantly, you have the self-confidence coming up of the civilian population.
Yes.
They should be saying, or they are now saying, हमारी पुलिस हमारी सुरक्षा के लिए आई है.
Right.
हम अभी स्वच्छ हैं, सेफ हैं.
Right.
हमारे बच्चे स्कूल जाने लगे हैं. हमारे बच्चे को अच्छा खाना मिल रहा है.
Yes.
हम एक नई जिंदगी देख रहे हैं. एक
Right.
नया हिंदुस्तान देख रहे हैं.
Right.
नहीं तो we were all inside the jungles eating bamboo roots.
Yeah,
We were
absolutely.
left behind by the great Indian economic boom.
Yes.
They left us. You see the satellite map of India in Diwali time.
Right.
And you will see that there is the heart of India totally dark once upon a time.
Yes.
Now lights are coming up now. Roads are coming up and education is coming up and self-confidence is coming up.
Right.
These
Absolutely.
people are now thinking of the world, thinking of joining the IPS and IAS and so many others. The results are yet there's just been out, and so many people from the remote areas
Right.
are now going to join Indian administrative services.
Right,
So this
absolutely.
is the situation. And what is more, the surrendered Naxalite says, "Oh, we didn't know. There was so much to do." Surrendered Naxalite said, "We were Psy war was done on us,
Yes.
and we were told this is your India,
Right.
and this is what you have to do, and you cannot go. Your family will be held to ransom if you leave us and go." But when they surrendered finally, they got rehabilitated by the government, and now they've entered into their marriage and normalcy. What we are looking for is normalcy.
Right.
And that normalcy has set in.
That normalcy is set in, Aditya, and it's impressive that how Brigadier Ponwar has been there. I remember meeting him over a decade ago in Kanker, and he was running this college of jungle warfare right in the middle of nowhere with snakes and scorpions for company. But now, and that entire area around that was a no-go zone practically. But now you have encounters of this size, 29 Maoists being killed right there in the heart of Maoist land, the area the size of Tripura. How feasible is it to imagine that the Maoists would surrender? This has been the policy of the government for many years.
The policy
surrender.
has been there. There are many relaxations that have been made as
Yes.
well by state governments and the center. And look at the situation, Sandeep. I remember more than a decade ago, the government was on its knees
Yes.
before the Maoists. Every time a senior government official or a group of civilians were kidnapped
Yes.
by the Maoists, the district collector and an intermediary from New Delhi who was close to the Maoists had to come down.
Right.
And there were negotiations for days together.
Right.
Sometimes, there were people who were killed as
Yes.
well. So I think now the game has changed completely.
Right.
There are opportunities that are being given to the Maoists to surrender. Many have surrendered as well.
Yes.
A lot of intellectual class of these Maoists has also been attacked,
Right.
and that's why they do not have the kind of money, the
Right.
kind of infrastructure
Right.
that they had. Perhaps coming from China, perhaps coming from the
Yes.
northeast
Very important,
route.
the overground workers.
Absolutely.
Right.
And, as I said, credit where it is due.
Yes.
The paramilitary, I have seen them working in the toughest of conditions.
Right.
In Bastar, it's standing for hours together,
Yes.
waiting. And you don't know where the attack can mount from. In fact,
Yes.
last year, we made this documentary called Cobra.
Absolutely.
From Jharkhand.
Yes.
There are similar examples from Telangana and
Right,
others
right.
where Maoists have been completely rooted out, completely
Yes.
eradicated. So Cobra has been trained in a certain manner to survive
Yes.
in the jungles
Right.
and to counter Maoists for weeks together.
Yes.
So similarly, the BSF also, I think this is the biggest successful operation for the BSF after years
the
together.
BSF, yes.
And that is a big pat on their back.
Right.
That they have been able to achieve this, and this will also increase the morale of the forces
Yes.
in the central Indian belt,
Right.
where I think Maoists are just a few hundred in number now.
Yes.
And as you said, it's not a few hundred districts, it is merely less than a dozen districts that are
dozen
affected.
districts,
and
right.
just like the Home Minister Amit Shah said, Naxalism will be eradicated.
Yes.
And I think we are firmly walking on that path now.
We are firmly working on the path of eradicating Naxalism, Brigadier Ponwar. But of course, I'm fully conscious of the fact that Naxalism, Maoism is an ideology, and
Yeah.
that would be really difficult to defeat. But this ideology is, practiced, it's promoted, it's preached by the Central Committee of the Maoists. Now, Brigadier Ponwar, we've been tracking all these Central Committee members for a very long time. Several of them have been captured, some have died in encounters. But still, this Maoist hydra continues with this Central Committee still in charge. What is the possibility, according to you, that the Maoist leadership might actually decide to, say that, listen, it's better that we come out of the jungles, we surrender, and we negotiate with the government? Do you see the possibility of that happening in the near future, or do you believe that, given the fact that how ideologically brainwashed they are, they might prefer to go down fighting?
Well, their leader, Gopala Lakshman Rao, handed over the baton and ran away to the Philippines.
Right.
He said he's now sick and old. He's beyond 70 years.
Yes.
And he's not able to handle the situation.
Right.
So he handed over to another guy, and they're leaving the battlefield.
Right.
If they have to, fight for a red flag on Red Fort, these are all imaginary things.
Right.
With the group of teachers in Karimnagar got together and started, lamenting that we will have a different kind of India.
Yes.
They were falsely, briefed and falsely
Right.
given some kind of ideology and said that power flows from the barrel of the gun, and they were taught a little bit of IED usage by the LTT who came in from Sri Lanka.
Yes.
That was a time when things were different, when they were able to activate the IEDs without any remorse and without any effort.
Right.
But now the IEDs are found out. We
Yes.
have now taught the people how to go about and bring about peace and tranquility.
Right.
So the leadership as of now is now tethering. New leadership is not available.
Yes.
New people are not available to take the place of the senior lot.
Right.
And senior lot are getting killed almost every day. Just yesterday you said 3 others have gone down.
Yes.
The others are watching. And if they, without leadership, no guerrilla unit can survive.
Right.
Even in
Absolutely.
the northeastern states,
Yes.
NSCN leader Isaac Su said enough is enough and we have got to go, and they have surrendered.
Right.
Kaplang is left for a little while, he also is dead, and there is not very many people to take on the agitation.
Right. Absolutely.
The Ulfa leader has also sent in particulars that he wants to surrender. So the point is, the leaders are now getting sitting on a thin edge and wondering what to do next, because
Right.
everything revolves on power flows from the barrel of the gun.
Right.
When the gun has been silenced,
Right.
as it is being silenced every day, then where is the power?
Yes.
What will they do? Out in the jungle, when from 4 sides, security
Right.
forces have established their camps, where will they live? Population is the center of gravity in this
Right.
warfare.
Absolutely.
And population is not on the side of the Naxalites anymore.
And as Brigadier Ponwar said so succinctly, that those guns are falling silent The Maoists once controlled nearly 200 districts. They ran a red corridor through the heart of India, and today their writ is down to less than a dozen districts. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Brigadier Ponwar and my colleague Aditya Kaul on the Maoists who've hit a dead end in Chhattisgarh. As Indians get ready to flaunt the index finger with the indelible ink mark, polling begins this Friday. News9 Plus asks, is it time to retire the ink and think digital? Catch our story, Think Beyond Ink, only on the News9 Plus app. Download and watch. And thanks for watching.
We are in election season and our social media feeds flooded with people posting hashtag ink selfies, proudly flaunting the ink mark on their index finger as proof of them having performed their constitutional duties. But have you ever wondered what exactly is this ink and where does it come from? That ink is a semi-permanent dye called the indelible ink. However, what's interesting is that there is only one company in India that produces this ink.
When we talk about Mysore, Mysore has a rich tapestry of old heritage buildings, but most of these buildings like your palaces, the government quarters, all these buildings have now become a relic. But the Mysore paint varnish factory still holds on to that old grandeur, the old structure, and the only modern thing that you see in that entire factory is that lab. It's still not that modern or that tech driven that we see in today's part, but it is sufficient enough for them and for their activities. So they were happy with it, and that is how the entire feel of that entire Mysore paint varnish factory is.
We are the sole manufacturer of this indelible ink, which is used in India as well as across the more than 35 countries around the world, which we have supplied for elections. Our product is well-established product, and everybody has the trust in us. The accountability of a government company is much more than compared to a private company. Private company, it is mostly profit-oriented.
Although indelible ink is inseparable from the voting process, however, there is a notable exception. The Election Commission of India has rolled out a vote from home facility for senior citizens aged above 85 years of age and for individuals with over 40% disability.
It's not that we are taking our machine to them. We are taking our only postal ballot to them, which they will sign, or there will be a stamp. They will stamp the postal ballot, and it will be put back in the envelope, and they will bring it back. So all it means the trained manpower which will go to people's homes, and we did it in COVID. It worked very well, and it will work in future also. In any case, in COVID we were giving this service to everybody over 80. Now they have changed it to 85, so which means the number will decline, but then even if it was 80, not a big issue.
Streaming on News9 Plus, news is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.